Hey everybody, I decided that today I would finally make a video of the two bats that are now here in my care and tell you guys a little bit about them. I know that most of you have probably seen their pictures over the weeks. Here is right now their cage setup. Now, I'm kind of still working out ideas of what they like, but these particular two bats, who are both big brown bats, so they are crevice dwellers and roosters, they really seem to prefer to be undercover a lot. They don't like to come out and eat unless the food is beneath one of these hangings, and they themselves are always found hanging. So here is Pillywiggin. And the hangings are several different things. Receiving blankets were recommended to me, as well as medical towels. This one here actually hangs from the ceiling to kind of give them a spot in the middle. They could climb up and down if they want. And then these are the drawer liners. And I actually taped the drawer liners and the first line of medical towels. I taped them on the outside so that they'd stay where they are, because I've been reading a lot of literature that says that they shouldn't, they shouldn't be able to hit their wings on glass as they climb. And of course, all the rehabbers that I know and trust locally, they do use glass tanks. So I'm kind of working out what I think would be best for these particular bats. But for the meantime, we do have a glass tank, and we have it with these so that they can climb along them and not hit their wings, their delicate wings, on the glass. The front is open so that I can see if they are awake or not. And also working out whether or not to keep the tank covered, at least partly, to keep in some of the heat and some of the humidity. So I've got in there a temperature gauge and a hygrometer for the temperature and the humidity as well, so that I can keep track of it. On the subject of bats, I wanted to show you guys my book, which has recently arrived just last week. And this is an excellent resource that was recommended to me at the Wildlife Rehab Center where I got the bats, for details of how to keep and care for insectivorous bats. It also includes a lot of medical details, and it's fully illustrated, as you can see, which is fantastic. Now, within here, this is where I got the idea that the glass cages are not recommended, at least by these professionals. They keep them in mesh cages. So I'm working out an idea of that. I was told not to keep mine in mesh cages because the humidity is difficult to control in that situation. So we shall see what we decide is best for the bats. I am still getting my ideas straight. One thing I do with the bats every day is I weigh them to make sure that they are not losing weight too fast. Make sure that they're eating, which is the best way to tell for sure. And let's see, looks like you are 25 grams today, which is what he has been. He has lost a little bit of weight since he's come here, but nothing drastic, and a little bit of weight loss is good for these guys because they came to me rather obese, and I was told to try to get their weights down. So this little guy tends to like to run around, so we'll see how this goes. But this is Pillywiggin, and he's also, of course, a big brown bat. And he was found in someone's house, unable to fly, in April. And this happened in Hartville. And as you can perhaps tell, he is missing his right eye. There was a cat attack involved, so he was injured a bit, but that is not why he is now in captivity. He, too, is unable to fly. And both Spriggan and Pillywiggin have shortened forearms, like not correctly formed, and they are too short for either of these bats to be able to fly. And that is the reason that they are not releasable into the wild, because of course a bat that cannot fly and can't really live out a normal life in the wild and would indeed not survive. And so this little guy here, he was an adult when he was found, but nonetheless he is extremely used to handling and is not at all aggressive with people. So I really couldn't have asked for better socialized bats. These two bats, of course, are education bats, which means that, like puka possum, they are to be used in education programs as per my permit, so that people can learn about bats firsthand. So these bats will be doing education programs at the Wilderness Center and elsewhere to show people about bats. And there are many very unique features which make bats special. And around here, of course, all of our bats are insectivores, so we don't have any fruit bats in Ohio, or of course any vampire bats, just bats that eat insects. And big brown bats, like Pillywiggin here and like Spriggan, in the wild, they eat things like beetles and stink bugs, which they catch on the wing as those insects are flying. So they eat fairly large insects, and a lot of them are actually agricultural pests, like the spotted cucumber beetle and June bugs and stink bugs. So they do a good service in that way. In captivity, of course, these guys are fed mealworms primarily, but I've also given them crickets so that they can have a chance to kind of chase down some prey, though I don't believe they have as yet eaten any of those crickets. And also, I don't see a problem with collecting those invasive species that they eat from places like the Wilderness Center, where clearly there are not going to be any pesticides used right there in the vicinity. So we shall see, because I like the thought of being able to give them a natural diet and some of the foods that they would have had in the wild as well. So as you can see, our little Pillywiggin has settled down a bit now that he's got a nice little shelter here. And he, in the center where he lived, he was number 88. So this guy, if you're watching from there, is Batty 88. And this is Spriggan. And at the center, he was known by the number, I believe, 586. So if you're watching from there, that's who this guy is. And he was found in June by another nature center, by Huston Brumbaugh, actually. And he was found unable to fly. So he was a youngster at the time, and he was raised essentially by people. And so he is a very friendly little guy, extremely used to handling. Now you may wonder then, why am I wearing gloves? And the reason is because I want to seem very responsible in my video. And one thing that people find most responsible when a person who keeps bats is handling them is that the person must be wearing gloves. But I did not want to wear latex gloves because I think that they smell and feel horrible, and I'm pretty sure that the bats would agree. So instead, this is my little compromise here that I have worked out. So this is Spriggan, and he, as you can tell, has got some rubbed looking spots on his forearms, and some other parts of his body, which this is a sort of a recent occurrence, and I don't know what had caused it. One expert I talked to thought that it might have been the humidity. The other was not sure, so I have decreased the humidity considerably. But I was thinking, in lieu of what I've read, that perhaps he had banged his arms on the glass. That, combined with the humidity, might have caused his skin to kind of rub off a bit. Obviously, I'm concerned about it, and that's one reason that I have kind of changed the hangings of the cage to make it a much softer space overall. So that is our dear little Spriggan. And he is a rather hefty little guy, as you can perhaps tell just by looking at him. He weighs 28 grams right now. And he is, of course, the best eater of the pair of them. And is always up for a snack. Now, they're sort of on a diet because, of course, he is looking a bit chunky, and the other is somewhat chunky, but not quite to this extent. And we want them to be very healthy. And these guys are extremely just charismatic and lovable little guys. I'm really enjoying getting to know them and working with them and getting them used to me and so forth. So you can look forward to lots more bat videos in time.